The sun spilled over the courtyard of Ilupeju Creative Institute, catching on the glass windows and bouncing off vibrant murals. The air buzzed with pre-show tension as students adjusted MIC stands and scribbled last-minute edits. In the middle of it all sat Zainab, quiet in her corner, legs tucked beneath her as she scribbled into a threadbare journal. She wasn't performing tonight, just helping out, but her poems never left her side. She didn't speak much, but her silence was loud. She was the girl people noticed only when the wind turned her pages. Then it did. A gust rushed through the courtyard, flipping her journal and sending loose poems flying like wounded birds. She lurched forward, breath caught, heart hammering. Before she could react, someone knelt beside her. "You write about birds caged in their own wings," a voice said. She looked up. Tobe, the spoken word phenom from Yaba, hoodie sleeves pushed up, notebook in one hand, a poem in the other. His eyes were the kind that pause when they saw you, really saw you. He handed her the paper with a gentle half-smile. "This one's honest," he said, nodding to the verse. "You should read it tonight." Zainab blinked, stunned. She managed a breathless thank you, barely meeting his gaze. Their fingers brushed, and for a second, the world paused, like even Lagos was holding its breath. He stood, notebook still under his arm, and disappeared into the crowd. Zainab sat frozen, her pages pressed to her chest. Her pulse didn't return to normal for hours. The next morning, Zainab skipped her usual corner of the library and found herself wandering toward the back of Ilasamaja's old food strip, the part with rusted zinc roofs and faded signboards. Behind a popular amala joint, hidden from the city's noise, stood the Booker tree, a quiet cluster of almond trees with painted tires for seats and chalk poetry etched on cracked walls. She sat alone beneath the thickest tree, journal in hand but pen idle. The words wouldn't come. Or maybe they would, but they all sounded like Tobe, as if summoned. Footsteps crunched behind her. "Knew you'd be the quiet under a tree type," he said, grinning as he held out 2 plastic cups. "Zobo, no sugar. Don't ask how I guess." Zainab blinked. She took the cup, fingers brushing his again. He sat beside her, not too close, just close enough that she could feel his warmth settle into the silence. They talked, slowly at first, then with rhythm. He told her about growing up in Yaba, skipping classes to attend open mics at Freedom Park, and how poetry was the first place he felt seen. She shared stories about her father's cassette collection, her love for old Nollywood monologues, and the feeling of watching people read her work when they didn't know it was haze. The Zobo turned warm. Birds chattered above. A danfo honked somewhere distant. But here, under the Booker tree, the world felt pause again. When he stood to leave, Tobe pulled a folded note from his back pocket and tucked it into her journal. "For when you feel like writing again," he said. Zainab waited until he disappeared before opening it. Inside, in slanted handwriting, were just 9 words. "In the hush of you, my poems find breath." She didn't smile. She beamed. Days passed, then a week. The Booker tree became less a place and more a ritual. Zainab would arrive first, journal balanced on her knee, pretending to write but always listening for footsteps. Tobe always came. Sometimes with roasted groundnuts, other times with playlists he burned onto a flash drive, Old Asa, Te Aiwa, Fila. They talk about everything. Grief, joy, hometowns. She spoke about losing her mum in JSS 3. He shared how he stuttered till poetry gave him rhythm. With each word, their silences grew softer. Zainab began to write again, not just in private, but for breath, for feeling. Her poems became bolder, stained with laughter and longing. Tobe would read them aloud, not as critique, but as tribute. "I don't think your poems are small," he told her once. "They are quiet, but loud in the places that count." She looked at him then, eyes locking longer than usual. One afternoon, just as she was packing up her things, he lingered. "There's a showcase this weekend at Lekki Arts Market," he said. "Poetry, music, palm wine in plastic cups." Zainab smiled. "Are you performing?" Tobe scratched the back of his neck. "Only if you're in the audience." Something in her chest fluttered, like her ribs were trying to clap. She nodded, trying not to let the smile take over her entire face. "All right," she said, voice barely above the wind. "I'll be there." As he walked away, she noticed he left his notebook behind. On purpose. Maybe. Inside it was a page dog-eared with her name on it. Zainab. One word. But beneath it, a single sentence was underlined twice. Some people don't just inspire poems. They become them. Saturday arrived with a scent of harmattan dust and hope. Zainab stood outside Lekki Arts Market, her navy maxi dress brushing the tops of her sandals, journal clutched to her chest. Inside, fairy lights tangled through wooden beams, voices floated with Afrobeats, and the stage glowed with a soft orange hue. She found a spot near the back, heart beating louder than the MIC checks. Then she saw him, Tobe, near the front, laughing, but not alone. A tall girl in ripped jeans and a red crop top leaned in close, her fingers brushing invisible lint from his shirt. Her laughter curved like perfume. Tobe didn't move away. Zainab froze. Her smile fractured. She blinked once, twice. Her chest felt like it was sinking while the rest of the room kept floating. It wasn't the girl's beauty. It was the ease, the familiarity. Like Tobe had already told her everything he once told Zainab. Zainab slipped quietly from the crowd and sank into a corner bench. Applause erupted, but it barely registered. Every performance blurred. Every stanza sounded the same. Her journal remained shut in her lap, unopened, unread. She didn't wait for Tobe's performance. She left before he hit the stage. The night air bit her arms as she walked back to Ilupeju. Her hands trembled, not from cold, but from something crueler, doubt. Back in her hostel, she ignored the 2 unread messages from him. The first, "You made it." The second, "I didn't see you." She stared at the blinking cursor on her screen, then turned her phone face down. Whatever he had with her, it must have just been poetry. Poetry ends. The bouquet tree stood empty. Its chalk-scribbled walls faded with a harmattan breeze, its painted tires now ringed with dry leaves. Zainab hadn't returned since the night of the showcase. The spot that once felt sacred now seemed like a memory she couldn't bear to visit. Tobe's text continued for days. "Are you okay? I kept a seat for you. Can we talk?" She read them but never replied. Her journal, once full of tangled verses, now stayed closed on her desk. What once poured out like stream water had dried to sand. In class, she avoided the studio where they used to rehearse. She changed her route through campus. Her smile became something people only saw in photos from months ago. She told her roommate she was just busy, that she was working on a script, that she was fasting. Lies came easier than explanations. But every time she saw an almond leaf fall or caught the scent of Zobo on someone else's breath, her chest tightened. Meanwhile, Tobe had stopped texting. Or maybe he hadn't. She'd blocked his number a few days ago. She didn't trust herself not to respond if he wrote something soft again. Her best friend, Yemi, noticed a shift. "You've been off," she said over lunch one day. "I'm just tired." But Zainab wasn't tired. She was hurt, not because of what she saw, but because of what had unraveled inside her, the foolish hope that someone like him could have meant everything he said. She tried writing about it. She wrote a poem called Red Blouses and Quiet Lies, but tore the page out and threw it away. She didn't want to remember him through poetry anymore. She wanted to forget. But forgetting someone who felt like silence itself, that was a harder kind of noise. Yemi had had enough. She cornered Zainab in the hostel hallway, arms folded, eyes sharp. "You've been dodging the world like it owes you money," she said. "What really happened?" Zainab sighed, the weight of the last 2 weeks sagging her shoulders. "I saw Tobe. At Lekki. With some girl. She touched his shirt like she owned him. He let her." Yemi squinted. "Tall? Red top? Sharp nails?" Zainab nodded. Yemi scoffed. "That's Faye, his cousin. They grew up in Yaba together. Girl, that's family." Zainab blinked, lips parting. "His cousin." "Cousin," Yemi repeated, softer now. "You should have asked. But you ghosted him like he sold your SIM card." Zainab sank into her bed, head spinning. 1,000 emotions warred in her chest. Relief, shame, longing. It had all been a misunderstanding. Yemi sat beside her, eyes gentler. "You're allowed to feel things. But you don't get to burn bridges over guesses. not with someone who made you smile in your sleep. That night, Zainab dug through a pile of untouched journals. Inside the pocket of a denim-bound sketchbook, she found it, a folded slip of paper tucked deep into a page she hadn't opened since the night she skipped the showcase. It wasn't a poem this time. It was a handwritten note. I don't know why you disappeared, but I miss you. Not the girl who writes poems. You. If I did something wrong, tell me. Just don't leave me in the silence. Tobe. Her hands trembled. She hadn't just silenced him. She'd silenced herself. Outside, the city hummed, generators, horns, dogs barking in the distance. But beneath the noise, something else stirred. Maybe it wasn't too late to write a different ending. Morning cracked gently over Ilasamaja, golden light spilling across rooftops like quiet forgiveness. Zainab stood near the buka tree, its branches swaying as they remembered her. It had been weeks since she last came. The spot looked the same. Painted tires, faded chalk scribbles, a soda bottle turned flower vase, but everything felt different. She clutched the note Tobe had written, now creased from being unfolded too many times. Her fingers tightened around it like it could anchor her breath. Would he come? She'd replayed it in her mind all night. The apology, the explanations, the maybe. But now, under this tree that once held their laughter in Zobo-stained cups, she only felt one thing: hope, fragile and stubborn. Then, footsteps. She turned. Tobe stood there, navy hoodie slightly crumpled, eyes searching, heart in his throat. When he saw her, he stopped, as if afraid the moment might break if he moved too fast. They didn't speak right away. The silence between them wasn't the old kind, the uncertain kind. It was weighted, aware, almost holy. Zainab found her voice. I read your note, she said, and I'm sorry. I saw something, and I assumed. I should have asked. Tobe stepped closer, his expression soft. I was confused, hurt, but I never stopped hoping you'd come back. She looked up at him, the wind brushing a curl across her cheek. I missed you, she whispered. He reached out, not rushing it. When she took his hand, the world seemed to sigh in relief. They sat down on the tire bench, side by side. No Zobo, no notebooks, just two people learning how to hold space again. Above them, an almond leaf spun lazily to the ground. Neither of them noticed, because in that stillness, something unspoken mended. The city moved around them, vendors shouting, okada's humming, radios buzzing, but under the buka tree, Zainab and Tobe sat in quiet rhythm, like verses finding their way back into a poem. They didn't need to talk much. The silence between them had changed. It wasn't full of questions anymore. It was full of answers they didn't have to say aloud. Tobe picked up a stick and began tracing slow loops into the red soil. I never knew I could miss someone who wasn't really gone, he said. Not until you. Zainab smiled, eyes soft. I wasn't gone. Just scared. He looked at her, nodding. Me too. For a while, they just listened, to the breeze, to the rustle of leaves, to each other's breath. Then Zainab opened her journal for the first time in days. The page was blank, but she didn't mind. I want to write about this, she said, but I don't know how yet. You don't have to, Tobe replied. Some moments write themselves. She looked up at the branches above, sun flickering through green like a kaleidoscope, and for the first time in weeks, the ache in her chest loosened. He gently nudged her shoulder with his. Let's not lose this again. We won't, she whispered. They sat that way until late afternoon. No poems exchanged, no declarations made. Just shared stillness, the kind that says I see you without needing proof. And as the sun dipped low behind the buildings, casting amber shadows across Ilasamaja, Zainab turned a fresh page in her journal. Not to write a poem, just to begin again.